Hi friends, welcome to the Evangelist Nick Garrett channel. Learn more about narrative apologetics and what we do at EvangelistNickGarrett.com. Today I want to talk to you about a character in the Bible named Pontius Pilate. We're looking at several chapters in the Gospel of John, and a few key verses we're zeroing in on that are very strange and offer a supernatural view. And the point that we're making with this is that if we have trouble in our own time, 2,000 years after Jesus, in getting people to believe in the existence of the supernatural living God, we're going to see that even in the face of his supernatural works in front of them, it wasn't enough to keep him alive. Granted, it was part of his plan from the beginning to die for the sins of mankind. So this course of events was set in motion, but they ended up killing him because his view as God and man went contrary to the religion that they had built about this very God, and they couldn't have it because it was a liability. What was a liability? Essentially, truth was a liability. When truth was told against the systems in place in that time. So there are three verses we're zeroing in on. In chapter 18, we get the saga of the Garden of Gethsemane. Jesus and his apostles pass over the brook Kidron. I want to define this for you just because there's always interesting symbolism in the Bible. See what the dictionary says, brook, of a brook. A small stream issuing from a subterranean spring and running through a deep valley as the Arnon, Jabbok, and Kidron. Definition 2. Winter streams arising from rains, but drying up in the summer. Definition 3, the torrent bed, even though it be without water, so that it is sometimes doubtful whether the bed or stream is meant. The word is sometimes rendered river, as in the case of the brook in Egypt, a small torrent in the southern border of Palestine. The beginning of chapter 18, it says, when Jesus had spoken these words, he went forth with his disciples over the brook Kidron, where was a garden, into which he entered with his disciples. I'm going to set up this first strange verse here. Judas also, which betrayed him, knew the place. Jesus oftentimes resorted thither with his disciples. Judas then, having received a band of officers from the chief priests, Pharisees, and soldiers, comes with lanterns and torches and weapons. Jesus, therefore, knowing all things that should come upon him, went forth and said unto them, whom seek ye? Who are you looking for? They answered him, Jesus of Nazareth. Jesus said unto them, I am he. And Judas also, which betrayed him, stood with them. As soon as he had said unto them, I am he, they went backward and fell to the ground. What? You ever notice that verse there? We think we know the saga and the drama of the garden, but this is strange. What? So who's there? Let's lay the groundwork. Jesus and his disciples pass over the brook Kidron, this waterbed, this dry river bed, this torrent, this spring stream from underground, born of the winter. He's there with his disciples. Judas comes up with Roman soldiers and officers of the chief priests, political allies, appointees, workers of the Sanhedrin. Compare the Sanhedrin a bit to our Congress. You have the Pharisees and Sadducees, or the Senate and the House of Representatives. It's a loose association you can make there. So anyway, they say, Jesus says, who are you looking for? He knows who they're looking for. They say, Jesus of Nazareth. He says, I am he. Went backwards and fell to the ground. Strange. And then in 19, after he's delivered to Pilate, Pilate took Jesus and scourged him, beat him. And the soldiers plaited a crown of thorns and put it on his head. And they put on him a purple robe. And they said, Hail, King of the Jews! And they smote him with their hands. Pilate therefore went forth again and said unto the crowd of the Jewish people assembled, Behold, I bring him forth to you, that you might know I find no fault in him. Right? Pilate doesn't want any part of this. There's Jewish holidays going on. It's his job to keep the peace. He's going to get heat from the top, Tiberius. What's going on down there? Can't you control your region, Pilate? It is that simple. At the same time, he finds no guilt in Jesus for anything. Listen to this. Then came Jesus forth, wearing the crown of thorns and the purple robe. And Pilate said to the people, Behold the man. When the chief priests, therefore, and officers saw him, they cried out, Crucify him. So what do you have here? You have an official with a man who's already been beaten and mocked, right? To try to appease this mob. It's essentially a mob. And there's leaders mixed in the mob trying to gin them up. Sound familiar? Does this sound familiar to you at all? Does this happen today? Truth be damned, right be damned. Clearly this man is supernatural, at least. Pilate's wife had dreams. Leave this guy alone. Just trust me, don't. Pilate knew. He kept sending him out. I find no fault with him. What do you want to do? One of the weirdest accounts in the Bible, there was a custom at the Jewish holiday to free one of their prisoners, Jewish prisoner, right? And the more popular people who had been imprisoned were let go, right? Let's see who the mob wants, bread and circuses. They send out a guy named Barabbas, Bar, Ben, son of, Abba, father? Hold on, so the son of the father is offered as an alternative to Jesus? Very strange there. But no, they're ginned up and they're saying, no, crucify this guy. Hey, if you don't, you're no friend of Caesar's. But listen to what he says. The Jews answered him, We have a law, and by our law he ought to die, because he made himself the Son of God. Son of God. The Jews say, the Son of God. He's making himself the Son of God. Barabbas is offered. You want the Son of the Father? That's weird. And then there's this verse that comes. When Pilate therefore heard them saying this, the mob, he was the more afraid. Pilate is doing this in fear. He's not doing this in leadership. He's not doing this in jest. He's tried everything. He went to Jesus. Who are you? Where do you come from? What's your deal? He's silent. Pilate says, Don't you know I have the power to put you to death? And he says to Pilate, Jesus does, You wouldn't have any power that wasn't given to you from the Father. These words resonate with Pilate. He's very uneasy doing this. In fact, afterward, listen to what the early church fathers had to say. And we've done videos on this. It doesn't end with the crucifixion and resurrection of Jesus. There are Roman governmental documents that Pilate sent up the chain. The Senate ends up having a hearing on this issue. The emperor of the time hears about this. That these things did happen, we can verify from the Acts of Pontius Pilate. That's attributed to Justin Martyr, a very early church father, and he references a scripture we don't know about, the Acts of Pontius Pilate. Justin writes pretty early. That means that there was a document, perhaps the governmental document itself, called the Acts of Pontius Pilate. All these things Pilate did to Christ, and now, in fact, a Christian in his own convictions. Pilate sent word of him to the reigning Caesar, who was at the time Tiberius. That was written by Tertullian in the 200s. Celsus does not realize that it was not so much Pilate who condemned Christ as it was the Jewish nation, which had been condemned by God. That's from Origen in about the mid-200s. So we have these strange events that happen. In the garden, Judas finds him. I am he. I am he. And he's the living God. I am he. This supernatural event where they all went backwards and fell down. Well, who? Judas and the soldiers and the officers of the chief priests? And they're not viewing this as confirmation that this guy is clearly not natural, but supernatural. They still hand him over. Pilate tries to placate them in every way, and he is afraid. He doesn't want any part of this guy. His wife has had dreams. He's had visions of this stuff. He knows the guy is innocent. He tries to offer up somebody else that strangely is the son of the Father. So at one point you have the Roman state going, shall I free to you the Son of God? No, we don't think he's the Son of God. Crucify him. We have our law. You should die. You're no friend of Caesar's. And Barabbas, the son of the Father. This is a strange moment. Why is his name that? But we know Pilate is afraid. And afterward, he would send word up the chain about this event that happened. These verses in John help us because they reveal the supernatural nature of the Son of God. And it would later lead to church councils devoted to the concept of hypostasis. Remember that the church councils were not trying to say whether or not Jesus was the Son of God. There was rarely an argument on the fact that Jesus was a supernatural being that came to earth. The resurrection is heavily attested. Acts says there were 500 witnesses alone to the event during the time of the early apostles. Some had gone to sleep, died, but there were still many alive. During that early time, you could knock on the door of your neighbor and say, hey, were you there that day in the city? What happened? That's something we take for granted 2,000 years later. But remember, in our society, in our time, naturalism is pushed on us, meaning everything can be explained in the natural world in naturalistic terms. There is a scientific answer for everything, even though that's not true. Even though early humanism, which would lead to naturalism, wasn't antithetical to Christian views, it was Christians trying to further understand and define God. It becomes problematic during the age of writers like John Locke, who get away from the concept of depravity and sin and start saying, no, humans are kind of born with a clean slate. He serves to build a secular government in America where the people tend to hold Protestant Judeo-Christian values and Catholic Judeo-Christian values. But as a counter to naturalism, supernaturalism exists. You have God, you have man, you have the nature of man. The problem with naturalism is that it doesn't allow for thinking in supernatural terms. There's no definitions, frameworks, or analysis that can be understood and thought of inside of naturalism for a supernatural God. There is no room for God in naturalism. There was no room for God in the natural world. Supernatural things occurred right in front of these people that were trying to crucify him, and it did nothing to satiate the mob. It's a fascinating account. A fascinating account. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining me. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you can support us, please do, or consider giving us a part of the tithes that you give. Use PayPal. We also have Cash App and Venmo. You can purchase one of the books from the Just Tell Me the Truth About Christianity series, Amazon.com/author/NicholasGarrett. You can also get some Truth First merch and support us that way. Make a merch perch. You can get a shirt, a coffee cup, a bag, something like that. I'm going to have a new product announcement coming out in the coming weeks that hopefully I'll be able to show you. It'll be quite awesome. An opportunity for our channel and for a business to kind of grow by offering you guys a cool Christian product. That's about all we have for today. God bless you, and may your work today bear fruit. Thanks.